How's it going?
Pretty well. How you doing?
Hey, you guys podcast around here?
Occasionally we podcast. You got some podcasts for us, Garrett?
What's a nice little podcaster like you doing in a Skype call like this?
Jeffrey, keep your eye on the babby. I will also keep the eye on the babby. The babby is Rolly.
She's there.
Yeah, you might hear some rattles, but whatevs.
She's playing with toys. Yeah, at some point, you might start hearing a screaming child.
Yeah.
That's me.
Also, yes.
Guys, I've missed you. Well, not you, Jeff. You're here with me all the time. Garrett, I've missed you.
Hey, Emily, I missed you too.
But not Jeff.
No. No.
I hate that guy. No, that's an absolute lie. I love Jeff.
Me too. Let's keep him.
Who doesn't?
I love you, Emily. I love all of you guys, but you know what else I love? I love learning about Tudor history, and it's been a while.
It has been a while. I have a surprise for you.
What?
It's going to be Anne Boleyn month. Because 483 years ago, Anne Boleyn had a shit time when she was arrested. In fact, May 2nd was the day she was arrested and taken to the Tower of London.
Oh my God, that's the day that we're recording this, but probably not the day that you're listening to this.
Yeah, but don't
Unless
worry.
you're listening to this in like a year, in which case that's perfect.
On the day you're listening to this, if it's May, something significant is happening with Anne Boleyn or Henry VIII.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Just constant updated news bulletin.
Oh, by the way, Tudor, I hardly know her listening about, so.
This just in. Anne Boleyn has been arrested. Reports coming in. Details to follow.
It's been reported that the Queen has been arrested.
Have we talked about how people got their news reports back in the day?
They had a little kid running around screaming at the news.
You had a kid just going...
Extra!
You had a person going around going... dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. God damn it, Harold, stop it.
It's a stutter. I can't help it.
What they probably did is they caught, when they went out hunting, they caught a fox and then they tied the newspaper to him. They sent him around, and that's how Fox News got started.
It was 21st Century Fox. No, we're going to talk about Anne Boleyn today, guys. And
Woo-woo.
for the foreseeable future, it's going to be all Anne all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I'm relying on you guys for being funny this episode because I got so into the research that I was like, oh, yeah, this is supposed to be comedic.
No.
So you guys are funny.
Before we
Much like my own life, I
into it.
find a lot of comedy and tragedy. And Pagliacci.
One thing I was going to bring up, not Anne Boleyn related, but something I saw, I remember texting Emily about this, was I was flipping through channels on TV. Yeah, flipping channels on a television. How weird is that? And I saw a commercial for a TV show called The Spanish Princess?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I think I saw stuff about that too.
All right. I'm
And
pumped to watch that.
And I'm like, already texting Emily, like, I'm confused. When did they ever because they call him like, they don't call him Henry, they call him something else. Harry. Like, oh, my friends call me Harry. I'm like, did anyone ever actually call him Harry back then?
IDK. It's Philippa Gregory, though. And she, as we learned from the other Boleyn girl, takes liberties with history.
Yep.
So, even Evie's upset about it.
Once I found out that's who the author, like, of the novel it's based off, I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. No, I want to do an episode about the Spanish queen or the Spanish princess, but I'm only going to do it when I can get when all of the episodes are out, because then I can just get the stars thing for free for a week, and I'll just pound through the episodes in a week, and then we talk about it. Sound good?
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys ready?
Oh my God,
let's do it.
Oh my God. So if I start talking with a fucky accent, I'm going to accidentally continue doing it. I have gotten stuck speaking in Valley Girl and with a country accent, and although Jeff loves it,
please don't let her do it.
I love it. That sounds great.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
It's like...
Hey, real quick. So, Emily, you say that we're talking about Anne Boleyn, but, you know, I think our second episode was about Anne Boleyn, wasn't it? The second or third episode was probably about Anne Boleyn.
It would have been, let's see, we did Henry VIII. It was our third and fourth episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about Anne Boleyn quite a lot. What more do we have to learn about Anne Boleyn?
See, now I guess it comes down to me wanting to talk about some episodes in Anne Boleyn's life. And some very, very detailed specifics about her. Mostly because I find it interesting, and you guys might too. But today, I know with you guys we've talked about Anne Boleyn as a whole, a little bit about her marriage to Henry. We've talked about her relationship with Henry Percy. But I want to talk a little bit about Anne's childhood because I believe that those years were very integral to who Anne became.
Her and her siblings just danced around in fields all the time, right?
Yes, according to the other Boleyn girl, that's all they did. No, I want to talk about Anne Boleyn's time at the court of Margaret of Austria and then at the French courts. Are you ready?
Let's talk Tudor.
Let's talk
Bring
Tudor.
it on.
All right, don't forget to be funny, guys. Nobody's here for this history shit. They're here for the laughs.
That's not what all the reviews say.
That's true. They're here for the very factual, completely accurate history that we provide free of charge.
All right, I know people hate us talking about being salty, so let's get on with it.
All right. So I kind of wanted to talk about Anne Boleyn's time with Margaret of Austria and at the French court because I feel like this time period of her life is regularly either ignored or forgotten. With the exception of Alison Weir she has a series about Henry VIII's queens, and the one she wrote about Anne Boleyn was called, oh God, I'm so sorry for yawning. It's just a fact of my life now. It was called A King's Obsession. And I thought it did a really great job of using this period of Anne's life to kind of set up her as a person beyond, like, a lot of people kind of were like, well, Anne clearly loved Henry, and we do get a lot of that, and it is possible Anne really did love Henry, but Alison Weir's book kind of talks about how this time period influenced Anne into becoming a powerful woman and marrying Henry because she could then wield that power, not powder. So that's my backstory. Now
Sticking to it.
let's go. All right. So when Anne was a young girl, her father had a lot of connections because he was Henry VIII's ambassador, and apparently he was besties with Margaret of Austria. A little bit of backstory about Margaret of Austria. Her name was Margaret, and she was in Austria. She was the sister-in-law of Catherine of Aragon, because everybody was everybody's sister-in-law back then because they couldn't stop marrying their cousins.
I was gonna say it's like 2 degrees of separation from anybody.
It is. Kevin Bacon is jealous of how close everybody is in this.
But somehow they're all still somehow related to Kevin Bacon.
Henry VIII is 5 degrees away from Kevin Bacon. No, she was Catherine of Aragon's.
While you talk, I'm actually going to look that up.
I knew you would. So Margaret of Austria had married Catherine of Aragon's brother at some point, and so they were in-laws for a short while. Margaret of Austria got married twice. None of her children survived. But she had this really baller court. It was like a Renaissance Central. It was like a theme park of Renaissance over there. So if you want to read more about Margaret of Austria, which I highly encourage, and in fact, if you want to read about all these women I'm going to be talking about, because this is a very feminist episode, guys, so if you don't like it, fuck off. But if you want to read more about them, you should get the book Game of Queens. I'm pretty sure I recommended it before, but it was a really great one, so go read it. Anyway, Thomas Boleyn was besties with Margaret of Austria, and because he was always trying to figure out how to get his family into the best places, he managed to get Anne, his daughter, a spot in her court. Nobody really knows when Anne was born. It was sometime between 1501 and 1507. So she could have been as young as 6 or as old as 12. It's more likely that she was
They didn't know her age at any point.
Well, here's the thing.
Like no one said like how old was she when she died. Like no one ever thought.
Well,
that.
here's the thing. I mean, that's for a couple reasons. First of all, women weren't important, so their births weren't recorded unless they were a princess. Anne wasn't a princess. Second, they were usually able to use church records to indicate when somebody was born because of the baptism happening soon afterwards. But they didn't have those records. Third, Henry VIII did everything he could to stamp out the existence of Anne Boleyn to the point where we don't even know for sure if the portrait that we think is Anne Boleyn is actually Anne Boleyn. We just kind of are like, yeah, it's fine.
Okay, I just like the idea of someone going up to like a little child and like, how old are you, little girl? 6 or 12? I'm not sure.
I have no fucking clue.
I have no clue.
Okay, so sorry to butt in, but I found the Oracle of Bacon. It's a website that does this for you. You can't. It's only letting me connect him to actors, so I picked Eric Bana.
That's fine.
Eric Bana was in Black Hawk Down with Ron Eldard, who was in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
Oh wow,
Big
they're
number
close.
of 2.
That's real close.
I like someone dedicate a whole website just for that.
Duh. Welcome to the internet. So Anne got to hang out in the Low Countries. She was Margaret was like, yeah, sure, bring on over your 6 or 12-year-old daughter. I'd love to have her here with me in my awesome Renaissance castle. And so she went and hung out, and they were in the Low Countries, which Tudor confession, I have no fucking clue where the Low Countries are. I read about them all the time in these books.
I mean, I would imagine they're a bit to the south.
No, they're a bit higher up than that. It's very strange.
Like edgier side of the city,
It's a misnomer.
of the kingdom, whatever. It's like, oh, don't go to the south side.
Looks like the Low Countries, also called Benelux countries, coastal region of northwestern Europe consisting of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg.
In Belgium. There we go.
Because much of their land surface is at or below sea level.
Wunderbar. So
Gesundheit.
Margaret's palace was considered a quote-unquote center of high culture. It was very educational. Well-known humanists liked to hang out there, including some guy named Erasmus. I know the name Erasmus because I read a bunch of books about Henry VIII and the Tudors. Do you guys know the name Erasmus?
It sounds like a philosopher.
He was
Erasmus?
kind of a philosopher. He was a humanist.
Ah.
What does that even mean?
He believes in
believe,
humans?
I believe that humans have more rights over animals.
Hey, Garrett, what's a humanist? Find the definition for us.
Yes, ma'am. I found my calling on the podcast. It's Wikipedia.
Yeah, you did.
Humanism is a philosophical and ethical stance that emphasizes the value and agency of human beings, individually and collectively, and generally prefers critical thinking and evidence over acceptance of dogma or superstitions. So, seems
Ooh.
a little bit like
Well,
almost atheistic thoughts.
no, that kind of makes Thomas More even more interesting because he was a humanist, but he was also incredibly religious.
Well, maybe that's more of a hey, like maybe gods exist, but do not rely on them for solving your problems.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Fascinating.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that. So Erasmus liked to hang out with Margaret. Apparently it had my dream library, like a huge ass library, and I can just picture it in my head.
Literally the one from Beauty and the Beast.
Literally
Yeah.
that. So they had books. She had books by Christine de Pizan. And Christine de Pizan was a woman who, first of all, the fact that she wrote a book is pretty awesome.
I was gonna say, like, you're like, oh, this female author, and I was just gonna let that, slide, but
Nope, it's pretty cool. Not only did she write books, but she also wrote books that challenged misogyny and the traditional views of women as weak, evil, blah, blah, blah.
how was she not beheaded as a witch?
Because she was at the court of, I think, if you read Game of Queens, it's in there, but I'm fairly positive that when she was writing these books, she was the guest of a powerful person.
Oh,
So
they're like, no, it's cool. She can write.
It's like diplomatic immunity.
pretty much,
She just screams that diplomatic immunity.
they're coming at her with swords, and she goes, "Diplomatic immunity."
Damn it.
Damn it.
She is the bad guy
Olé.
from Lethal Weapon.
So this library also had books by Aristotle and Aesop. so many of his fables, and it was considered one of the centers of courtly love, which, if you remembered, we talked about that. Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you?
Courtly love.
Yeah, it's Kurt Cobain's wife.
Oh, God, I was gonna make that joke.
No, courtly love was that whole idea of a court is where you are kind of always flirting with people, but it's a game. It's not meant to be serious. So if I'm flirting with, I may be married to Jeff.
So really foppish people going, and like fanning themselves with
Yes.
giant feathery fans and
Yes.
just making goofy googly eyes
And-
at each other.
Well,
Yeah,
I
and they-
do declare.
And they flirt with each other, but it's a game. And the men are always like, I'm not worthy of this fair maiden over here. And the women are like, oh, I'll tease you and let you pretend that you're going to get married to me. But they all ultimately know who belongs in what stations in life, right? So the courtly love thing was a big thing at Margaret of Austria's court. It was just like this game.
It's like a weird, like, spin the bottle for ye old times.
Yes, it was Foppy spin the bottle. So Margaret of Austria assigned Anne a tutor when Anne arrived so that she could learn better.
A tutor.
She assigned her a tutor, not a
Thank
tutor, a tutor in French. And Anne also learned music, poetry, art. A lot of this really affected what Anne loved as a first of all, Henry VIII's not quite mistress, and then his queen. She was a patron of Hans Holbein the Younger, not to be confused with Hans Holbein the Elder.
Because
Fucking Lord
I
of the-
get so confused when their ages.
Fucking Lord of the Rings shit over here. So this all kind of started her love of music, poetry, art, things like that. And she almost had a royal education. Her father already worked hard to teach her the basics. Her mother taught her sewing and things like, or rather they had governesses who taught her that kind of stuff. But this is what gave her a, is it accurate to say continental education? Or it gave her a well-rounded courtly education, rather. So Margaret of Austria had many pieces by composers, and these were also pieces that Anne was later known to have loved. And then in the 1530s, when Anne was working on the Palace of Whitehall, it was built in a similar fashion to that of Margaret of Austria's palace. So this really she latched on to Margaret of Austria's essence and was like, I can do this. So it was a huge deal. So because of Anne's exceptional courtly skills that she learned at Margaret of Austria's court, Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's sister, not to be confused with his daughter, picked Anne to serve her in 1514 when she went to France to marry King Louis the Decrepit.
The orangutan.
He's the king of the swinger zone, guys.
What we do? Wait, his name was Louis the Decrepit?
No. He was old as shit, though.
Okay. I thought that was an
Oh,
actual...
they're not too subtle back
God,
then.
there's the elder, the younger, now there's the decrepit. Like, we're not
Well,
being nice about
Henry
this.
VIII was almost called Henry the Impotent.
Wop, wop, wop. Will you cut that out?
That's not funny, guys.
Oh, there she goes. So anyway, Anne went to serve Mary, Queen of France, in 1514, and it's interesting because Mary picked Anne to serve her, but later on, when Henry was trying to marry her, Anne and Mary had some cat fights. This is getting very confusing.
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann wanted to marry Anne. Okay.
Marianne.
And then Anne and Marie.
Oh my God.
So Anne didn't arrive until after Mary was already in France. Once Mary married Louis.
Okay, wed.
Once they wed. Good call, Garrett.
Thank you. It's driving me fucking insane.
It was driving me nuts too. once Mary wed her husband, Louis, he dismissed a bunch of her ladies in waiting with the exception of a few, including Anne and Mary Boleyn. More Marys.
Of course.
So they got to serve as her ladies. It was kind of a different court from Margaret of Austria, but it didn't last long because Louis died very shortly because he was Louis the Decrepit.
I'm sorry, Emily. About how old were they at this time?
So this was like 15, 14, 15, 15. So Anne could have been as old as as old as 13 or as young as 7. Now, I feel like the fact that she was away serving at this young age is supportive of her being born in 1501. I can't remember where the 1507 number comes from or why people think she was born in 1507, but I feel like she must have been born closer to 1501 than 1507 because she would have been 7 years old serving. Like, why would King Louis dismiss well-trained ladies in waiting to his queen, but to keep a 7-year-old? It doesn't make sense. It makes more sense for him to keep a 13-year-old, right?
Is her parents Tobias and Lindsay Bluth? Or UK, sorry.
Yes.
How old is your daughter?
I want to say
18?
18?
To me, she'll always be 14.
Yep. They were drunk the years that they had the kids, so
Yeah.
that they were like, I don't fucking know what it is.
Where did this one come from? How long has this one been here?
So anyway, Louis died very shortly after the wedding, and so yeah, right.
Because he died smiling.
Actually, it said that he died because he overexerted himself in the bedroom.
Yeah, he died smiling.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
He
Really?
was
That's the
smiling,
way to
so I thought
go.
everything was okay.
that's
How
the way
old
to
was
go.
he?
50s?
I was gonna say this.
Oh.
This makes me.
Old for that time period.
Who was it? Anne Nicole Smith was married to like this really old
Oh
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
They had a
That's a name nobody has said in over a decade. Anna Nicole Smith.
God.
Yep.
Why was she even a thing?
Playboy.
Because she was a playmate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And she had that reality show.
Yep.
I remember the reality show.
And yeah, she had like was married to this really old guy.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And she laughed like this.
She laughed like Fran Drescher.
Yeah.
Probably.
So when Mary was widowed, Mary, Queen of France, was widowed, she secretly married Charles Brandon, if you guys remember that. So it's possible that Anne was witness to that, but we don't really know. There were only like 10 witnesses to that. It's possible they were like, go to your room, little child. Don't pay attention to what the adults are doing. So Mary and Charles Brandon returned to England, but Anne stayed in France to serve the new French queen, Queen Claude. That is an attractive
Claude.
name. It's probably pronounced Cloud, but Claude, Claude.
And I'm Claude.
That's Claude.
And I'm Dooney. So Anne served Claude for about 7 years, so a very lengthy amount of time. By the end of that time, Anne was referred to as more French than a French woman born. And this also helped really shape who Anne ended up being. Claude really liked romances and poetry, so she did a lot of reading, and her ladies read a lot with her. One of her ladies was a famous poet named Anne de Greville, and she was another very strong-minded woman that Anne Boleyn would have known. In 1515, King Francis invited Leonardo, not the turtle, the Da Vinci, to France. So it's very possible that Anne met Leonardo da Vinci, which is really interesting for me to think about because it's almost like two parallel worlds colliding.
You always kind of forget who's actually alive at the same time as other
Right.
people.
Right. It just history is mind-boggling.
Hi, Amatronio.
Hi, Anna Matronio. Anne also met Margaret of Navarre. She was the sister of Francis I. And there was also...
Oh, she doesn't like that.
What'd you say?
Oh, I said the baby doesn't like that.
No, she does not. So Margaret of Navarre was another very powerful woman in the French court, along with her mother Louise. And not that Louise. when Francis was away doing whatever it is he did when he was away, he left his mother and his sister running the country. So that was another thing Anne saw growing up, was these women in charge of the country. Margaret and Anne actually exchanged letters during Anne's time in England when she was Henry VIII's not concubine, not wife, not mistress, girlfriend.
Side piece.
Side piece, yes. When she was his side piece, and then when she was queen, Anne and Margaret exchanged letters. That's kind of indicative that they had some sort of friendship. And then Anne was also exposed to some religious reform while she was there, because Queen Claude's younger sister, Renee, was heretical, and kind of introduced Anne, possibly, at least Anne would have known about it, the Reformed faith, because she was so adamant about it. So later on, Renee would refer to her friendship with Anne during Queen Elizabeth I's reign. So Anne had some really fascinating friends while she lived in France, and it's highly likely that they formed the person she ended up becoming, ultimately leading to her being who Henry VIII saw as a fit queen and wife and mother of his children and all that fun stuff. So
what was the age, like, what was like the line of ages with the Boleyn children? Like, who was oldest to youngest? Do we not know who was older than who?
Correct. George was okay, there were two brothers who died who were older than George. And then I think comes George, and yeah, you know what? They just don't fucking know. There's debate. There's debate about whether it was Mary or Anne who was older, because people are like, well, Anne is the oldest, but then why would Mary get married first? And then there was, I don't even know where the two older brothers thing comes from. I don't know if
See, I was just trying to figure out if they line it perfectly age-wise to be the Belcher children. Because I just visualize Mary
Jean, Tina, and Louise.
Yeah, Mary is Tina, while Anne is Louise, and George is...
Yeah. Jane. Jane.
I just like the idea of, like, because it makes sense Louise would be Anne.
I agree. Just running the world.
Somebody want to do this fan art for us? The Belcher kids as Tudor characters. Did we already ask for this a long
We
time
had
ago?
one.
We do.
Tina.
We had. Yeah, somebody made us a
I think
Tina.
it was Tina. It was Mary Queen of Scots. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was delightful.
Oh, that's right.
I'll find it and share it with you again, Gare.
We've gotten some funny stuff from fans.
Yeah, you guys rock.
Like some funny images. One of my favorites was the one where it was Henry VIII as Anakin from Episode 3. Anakin is it's Henry VIII with the lightsaber, and then it shows the room with the younglings.
Except they were all of his wives.
We don't deserve you guys, is what we're saying.
We don't. You guys rock. So that kind of covers Anne's youth that shaped who she ended up being. I know we talk about Anne a lot, but I wanted to talk about her more.
Well, Anna's like your favorite of the wives, isn't she?
She is. I don't know why.
I think she just has the much more fascinating story about her. And
yeah.
Because, like, of all the queens, she kind of got into it the more interesting. Like, it felt like she felt like the one more, like, he was in actually love with someone at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, he did love Catherine.
Well, yeah, but theirs was way more. He felt like a typical arranged, like, kind of marriage.
So this actually was up on Reddit the other day. Somebody asked a question about Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Let me see if I can find it. Or not necessarily Catherine of Aragon. It was about Henry VIII and why only two of his queens were the traditional queen, where they're from another country and they use it to settle a pact of some sort. And
because you feel like after Anne, he just didn't actually really care about, like, completely who was marrying. It was just like whoever can just get pregnant and birth me a child.
Yeah, the way I see it in the public's reaction, I see it as, Henry marries Catherine. It was like, ah, yes, our king and queen, they shall bring us many children. And then all this time passes, and then Anne comes into the picture, and they're like, maybe. I mean, I hope he's happy. And then she dies, and they're like, okay.
Okay, so here's the post. It was
like me with my dad's wives.
It was in the history subreddit. This is the question. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion on the marriages of Henry VIII. I have a question about him. Why were only 2 of his 6 wives foreign princesses? Catherine of Aragon was the traditional choice of wives. Anne of Cleves sort of was, even though she was just the daughter of a duke. The other wives were of English, quite modest to be fair, nobility. So why didn't he use his marriage for alliance purposes, as was the rule?
Seemed like he just didn't want to.
It was kind of that he didn't want to. Henry VIII
he was a king, and he wanted
I
what
do
he
what I
wanted.
want.
Henry VIII liked to think of himself as a romantic. So yes, Catherine of Aragon was a traditional queen consort in that she came from Spain and she had a powerful family. But as we've talked about many, many, many times, she was betrothed and married to Arthur as part of that contract. Henry fell in love with her and married her after years of bullshit with his father, and did it because he was in love with her, not because they had any sort of agreement, really. I mean, there was one that was thrown up in the air while Catherine was...
Until he fucking throws her under the bus saying, well, technically she's like my sister, and that's all ick, right?
Yes, and it's because Henry liked to think of himself, I believe, as this gallant knight. He always wants to believe that he was doing the right thing. So even when he threw Catherine away, he was doing it for a reason that he deluded himself into believing, which was, I'm doing the better thing. The reason we don't have a son is because we broke God's law by marrying. You are my sister. Clearly something's wrong. Now, did Henry convince himself of that? Possibly, very likely, probably. But Anne Boleyn was another situation where he's like, I'm in love. This is love. And then he left Anne because he's like, well, first of all, Anne committed incest, which is exactly why I divorced Catherine, because that was incest. And she's a witch. And it's all, although technically she wasn't actually accused of being a witch. And then he fell in love with Jane. And then Anne of Cleves was really the only traditional marriage he had. And we all know how that turned out. So,
Yeah.
Yep. He very much liked being in love, and Anne was a lot due to her time on the continent. Anne was an appropriate choice in terms of education and beliefs and likes, even though she didn't have the noble title, which was a huge problem. So.
Also, I said she died. That's not true. I mixed her up with the last one. That's the one he divorced.
Divorce Pieta died. Divorce Pieta survived.
That was she was one of those quickie marriages, kind of like Nicolas Cage had. Oh my God, have you been following that story?
No, all I know is that he got married and then 4 hours later a divorce.
So him and his wife got married at a quickie marriage in Vegas. Even though a few hours before they got married, they were arguing like crazy. They're just yelling at each other. But they got married, and then 4 days later they split up. Nick Cage saying, it's an annulment, and she's saying, no, you owe me support, spousal support.
Those were the best 4 hours of my life.
Here's the best part of the story, Emily. Like I wanted to show you this last week, but I never got around to it. Nicolas Cage was spotted on 2 separate occasions at karaoke bars in Las Vegas,
yes,
angrily, drunkenly singing Purple Rain.
I heard about that. Poor Nick Cage.
Poor Nick Cage, but come on, man. Oh, I love him.
Well,
we don't deserve Nick Cage.
So that is Anne Boleyn and Margaret of Austria.
And Nick Cage.
And Nick Cage.
No, that was a good one. I really like that.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So all that time was before.
That was before she was in England.
Okay.
Before she was at the Chateau Vert. Before she met Henry.
So that's not like in the movie. The other Boleyn girl. That's not when Anne left town and then came back a bad bitch.
No. Nope.
Okay.
When she was
Okay,
in like
that's-
timeout.
Yeah, she was put in the corner with a
Okay.
really awesome dress.
Of
Nope.
course.
So that's that.
All right. So there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Emily.
You are welcome. We're going to keep up the Anne Boleyn tide for a little bit longer.
And more importantly, we're going to keep up the stream of episodes, we hope. I mean, it's
Yeah.
April was a rough month for you guys. It was a rough month for me, but we are getting back into the groove. We say that a million times. Do not believe us, but try to believe us.
But just, we do see you guys. We see your messages. It's just been trying to figure out our very new life. And we still love doing the podcast. We still love hearing from you. So keep following us on Twitter at Tudor Know Her. Keep sending us messages and funny shit on our Facebook page at Tudor I Hardly Know Her. Rate and review us and subscribe and tell us what you want to hear us talk about, because son, I could talk about this all day long.
Also, we're officially on Spotify now.
Yes.
It's weird.
I did finally notice
Crazy.
that. I don't know why it took us.
I didn't know Spotify had
It took a while for us to
podcasting.
finally get it on there for some reason.
Well, and oh wait, from the moment I submitted it?
Yeah.
No, I think somebody found us like later that day
Yeah,
when I did
I
it.
think we
I just
finally
didn't know I
checked
didn't know
myself.
Spotify was a thing.
I checked to make
So
sure
if you
we
type
were on
in
there.
Tudor in Spotify, here's the results. The Tudors music from the show, some artist named Tudor, another artist named Tudor, a playlist called Tudor Music, another playlist for Tudors, another Tudors playlist, and then us.
Hey,
Podcast
yeah.
Emily Simpson.
Yeah.
That's baller. We rock.
We're all official in here.
Yep.
But it says Tudor I Hardly Know Her by Emily Simpson.
No. It's also by Garrett and Jeffrey.
Wow, way to big time us.
I'm not even on iTunes.
I'll put you on iTunes.
It seriously just says like Emily Simpson, like Garrett Kaiser on iTunes.
I will fix that.
We got to get Judy to just draw your head somewhere in that picture.
We've made this joke so many times. Just like
No, I like it as is. I just want
the Nick Cage off the corner.
Yeah. That's my favorite. That was my favorite one that we were ever given. I'm gonna find it. So that's it, guys.
Yeah. Speaking of, follow us on Spotify. I don't know how that works with podcasts, but
Neither
do
do
that. iTunes. What else? What else we got?
I don't know where else you find
I don't know.
podcasts. That's the thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Stitcher. I don't know if we're on there.
Yeah, Stitcher. We are on Stitcher.
Let us know what the hell you're listening to us on.
Yeah, right.
Just create a
man.
Facebook poll or a Twitter poll or something like that. Or just like, where do you listen to us?
Where are
How the hell
we?
did you find us, too?
Where are we?
We've been getting a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot, but we've been getting like a steady amount of people liking the Facebook page, which is what I pay attention to the most.
Yep.
So I'm like, where are these people coming from?
Yeah, the
How do
people are
you
like,
find
I
us?
just discovered you guys. We're like, we're on episode 85 already.
Yeah. You guys are awesome. We love you.
Woo!
So
But yeah, let's until next time.
until next time,
Until next time.
divorce, beheaded, died. Divorce, beheaded, survived.
survived.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.